we might be live. I don't know. Let me know if you guys are able to hear me. Let's see. Are we working? I don't know yet. We'll go ahead and refresh this page. I'll be sitting here talking to myself. Hey, look. I'm on camera. Yay. Okay, so you guys are saying there was a problem with the link when I linked to this one. Did I screw up the link in the other? I don't know. There were just problems. Apparently, there is a huge problem. Every time I'm scheduling these now, they're not working. I keep having to make a new one that's 2 weeks in a row, and I have no idea why. So, okay then, we are here. Joseph, can you do me a giant favor and repost this link in wherever I posted this in the group? Because, yeah, there's the correct one. So, today I am working on Fabriano Artistico Extra White Hot Press 140-pound watercolor paper. I've already airbrushed the background. I used masking fluid and Frisket in order to keep my, the white portions really clean, although there are a few spots where I missed a little bit. And I'm going to be using Polychromos and Luminance. I may end up throughout this using a little bit of Lyra Rembrandt, probably not, but it's possible. I won't be using those today anyway. So, let's see. Let me double check the link that I had in. Oh, it looks like my streaming is actually showing as being pretty bad too, so I might be getting laggy. I don't know. No, I haven't hit record yet because I haven't actually picked up the pencils. I just have to remember pencils record at the same time, just because it makes more editing for me later on. Let's see. Yes, it was a lot of Frisket. I have a gigantic roll, and then I used the masking fluid, the Winsor & Newton masking fluid, just for my edges. So, okay, you guys are on top of this whole record thing. I'll go ahead and push that now just so I don't accidentally forget. And even my sister, Leanna, is texting me to make sure I hit record. You guys are, like, not going to let me forget. You're awesome. Okay, yeah, is it not... I don't know if you guys are going to have problems with lag. I'm showing on the live stream, my little thing, that it is bad. I don't know why or how to fix it. There's not really much. What I'm seeing looks fine as far as the actual video. So, okay, not changing. We are getting started. So I am going to kind of work back and forth between the Hummingbird's head and his body. While one area is wet, then I'll work on another area because I will be blending with Odorless Mineral Spirits. I am using Mona Lisa Odorless Paint Thinner. If you can't get that, Gamsol works exactly the same. This is the Gamsol by Gamblin. It also is an odorless mineral spirit. It just costs a lot more than Mona Lisa Odorless. If you can get the Mona Lisa Odorless paint thinner, you can get a gallon of it for like, I don't know, it's on my floor. I think it was like $30 and I used a 40% coupon. So it does not cost very much at all. Very, very inexpensive to go. And yes, it is odorless, but at the same time, it is a chemical that you don't want to be inhaling. So anytime I'm not working, I keep it in a little lid. The lid is always on unless I'm actually using it. So, you know, don't sit there huffing it. Use common sense. I would not have my little weird looking baby chicken in the room. I considered having him here for today's video and then remembered I'm using that. I wouldn't trust that around birds. So it is toxic enough. You want to use common sense. But at the same time, then we go back to I have fibromyalgia. I am hypersensitive to everything. Everything gives me a headache. So the doctor said that was from fibromyalgia. I don't know what it's from or if it really is I'm making up words, is because of that or not, but yeah, this doesn't give me a headache, so that's saying something. So let's go ahead and get started. I am going to start with this little eye, and I'm going to jump right into black. Eric wants to know, what should I do when I don't know what to draw? Go to a website like Pixabay. If you want to spend money on a reference photo, you can do wildlifereferencephotos.com. You can sign up for something like Graphics.com. I mean, there's a lot of options out there for reference photos. I need this to be a lot sharper, so I'm going to use the Coom long pointed sharpener for this one. But there are a lot of options. Go and just pick something, anything. It doesn't have to be like, I think one problem that artists have is they expect every single thing that they create to be their biggest and best masterpiece ever. That's just not how it works. Pick something and draw it. And usually while you're drawing that thing, you'll come up with ideas on other things that you want to draw. So it's not like that's not going to lead you to some amazing work. But don't be so worried about having every single thing be the best idea you ever had. I see that happen a lot with artists, and it wastes time. I'm debating over whether or not I should just go ahead and let the it looks like I'm going to be using some Pablos tonight too, because I have a couple. Whoops. And it's right there. Is this tight enough? Nope. But I may just blend over that little shine spot on the eye, because I'll use my mixture of the powder, brush and pencil. If you go to brushandpencil.com, you can get their powder blender, and I mix that with their titanium white powder, and I can dot in the highlight. So I don't need to keep that super clean. See if I'm missing any there. Nope, we are good. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more pressure to the pencil, because I do know I need this to be pretty dark. I don't need to do too much layering for that color. I am going to take one other color though. Yeah, this one will probably work. Just lay that over the black. It is very, very rare that anytime where I use black, I'm a huge fan of my black pencil, but I don't leave black everywhere. There's usually going to be another color mixed into it so that I get depth there, so that it's not totally flat. Let's see. I'm going to start working around his eye, and the first thing that I'm going to do is lay down some of the white, and I need to figure out what I did with my white luminance. Someone is asking, and I just missed the name, I just saw quickly as it scrolled past, how to use Frisket. And the way that I do it, I take a big piece and I tape it over my work. I already have everything drawn out here. And then I just take a marker and draw on the Frisket, and then use scissors to cut it out. There are a million different methods on how to best use Frisket. That's just my normal way to go. Now, there were areas, actually, I was afraid that I cut through the paper. No, I just scored it. I didn't cut through it. On one spot, I forgot about that, to check that later on. I was afraid I was going to have to tape my project together on the back. But I will also sometimes take a razor blade, a really sharp X-Acto knife, and just cut out the Frisket that way too on smaller areas. You can get more exact that way. You just have to be really careful not to push too hard and cut through your paper. Like I scored it here. It's not actually damaged, but it could have been. So the reason that I'm putting white down first, even though you can't really see what I'm doing, and I am putting a fair amount of pressure on this, more so than I will with other colors, is that I'm protecting the paper from getting too dark. When I lay my other colors on there, they're not going to get super dark because I already have the white there protecting it. So I know it's terribly exciting watching me block in what looks like nothing, but I promise I'm going somewhere with this. Okay, let's go ahead. I'm going to jump to some tan colors, or beige, brown, whatever. And I just need to start blocking in my general shapes. And again, a lot of the detail I'm going to do, I'm going to paint on with the brush using the brushandpencil.com, the titanium white and touch-up texture. That, even when I'm not using powder blender, has turned into, like, it is a must have for me. I love being able to get the white details that were previously so hard to do. Just slowly going through here. And again, because I know I'm going to be able to paint on white, if I go in the wrong spot, I'm not going to freak out about it, because this is going to be easy to hide stuff. And what I'm doing, I'm not just filling in a base color like you'll often see me do. I'm kind of making these sketchy lines. I just need to make sure they're going in the right direction for the feathers, but I'm going to let some of the white paper poke through here and there for little bits of highlights. So where you'll often see me just block in a base and then layer on top of that. For a lot of this, I won't be doing that because this is such tiny detail anyway. So this one comes out from here. We'll just shade down this way. And this reference photo comes from an amazing photographer, Christine, and I can't say her last name, but I will on the video. This won't be going up next week. It'll probably be the week after. No, it'll be 2 weeks from I don't know. I've got a couple weeks. I have a different project that's going up next week. But I will make sure I have her credited as the photographer. She sends me or emails me regularly the most amazing, amazing photos. So the hummingbirds are from her. The leaves and the berries that you'll be seeing next week, those are from me, or one of my photos. See, just little bits at a time. This is a very slow process. Don't feel like you're in a rush or a race. I see that happen a lot where people will watch the time-lapse videos on YouTube and think that their work should just, be done in an hour, and that's not how it works. Why is it every time I live stream, that's when the spammers want to call me? Fernie wants to know if I always do my backgrounds first, regardless of the color in my main subject. Usually, I can't say always. I mean, I change my mind all the time on how I want to do stuff. But more often than not, yes. I generally like to get my background blocked in first. Notice where I'm holding the pencil. You don't want to hold the pencil up so close to the tip that you don't have any control. Hold it back further where you can see the tip of that pencil, and make sure that you keep your pencil sharpened as well. Kaneho has now done hashtag Kaneho for mod. Oh my gosh, that would be a terrible idea. I have a feeling he would have fun banning anybody who said anything just for the fun of it. Spy hanger is right here, as usual, under my easel. And there are now people who have no idea what we're talking about with spy hanger who think I'm completely insane. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, with KR Campbell says, I have trouble with the frisket, but I meant masking fluid. I tried to rub it off, but sticky bits remained and got stuck in the paint. You need to make sure you get it off before you start painting, and I have to rub my finger over it quite a bit to rub areas off around the edges. You can usually feel where it's left over. So that is actually pretty common, and it's worse depending on the type of paper that you're using. I know that the frisket, or I'm sorry, not the frisket, the word just left my brain. It's sitting over here somewhere. The masking fluid, that's the word. Wow, that was surprisingly hard. But that can go bad too and make it even harder to get off the paper. I've seen that happen. It's quite frustrating when it does. Mine I hadn't used in a while, and I got kind of lucky because it sealed. It created a seal where it dried on the top, and I was able to puncture it, and it was perfectly good underneath. Fried Chicken Live has an awesome name and wants to know, in how many hours do you guess this drawing will be finished? I don't know. I know it's going to be a 2-week project. I'm hoping to get at least one bird and some of the leaves done today, or maybe I'll do all the birds and then all the leaves at once. I don't know. But in this week, I don't mean today, this week, get those done. And then the next week will be the leaves. I saved a lot of time being that I airbrushed the background, but I would guess, I'm going to say it'll probably be a 12-hour project, maybe if I added up all the hours, but that doesn't count every time I stop and sharpen a pencil, get up and get a drink, that sort of thing. Just like the actual recorded time would probably be, I'd guess, around 12. Could be wrong. Catherine wants to know if my Fabriano paper has ever been damaged by rolling it for shipping. Lady at the art store said it would end up with bumps and stipples all the way through it. I've not seen that happen, and I've not had anyone complain about it. Yeah, no, I know that I've sent that rolled and not had an issue. I'm not saying that it couldn't happen. And there are going to be other factors involved with paper. It may not just be from the paper. It could be how the pencil was layered, or what, was water used heavily? Was it really humid out? So many things can factor how other things behave. I think we like to say all the time that it was definitely the paper, it was definitely this. And a lot of times it's just a combination of a lot of different factors didn't play well together. JPC 13 Art wants to know if I can zoom in on the Hummingbird, which she has named Charlie. You know what? I actually can. I had it zoomed in before, and it apparently reset itself. So let me go ahead and fix that for you. It'll take me just a second to remember what buttons do what. Sorry about that. I thought he was still zoomed in. Okay, that should be better for you guys. Give it just a minute and it should zoom in. I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't realize it reset when I had to restart everything. So with this guy, he is really, really fluffed up. So you're going to see more of a sketchy look with his feathers than you're typically going to see. Like the other birds will be much smoother. The other two are not all fluffed up. But he, like, if you're familiar with birds, they'll kind of fluff themselves up and their feathers all stick out funny. So that's how he is. But birds don't typically always look like that. It's just when they're all fluffed. The other two will be smooth. But in this case, because he is fluffed, I've got to make sure that I keep with that sketchy line. So this I can go a little bit more solid. Stephanie says, with the holiday shipping deadlines coming up, do you have good online art store suggestions? I just go through Dick Blick is my first choice because I love their customer service when I've had problems. Like, they were just so impressive how quickly they took care of my own screw up. I forgot to order some stuff and they added it to it, but they were like calling me back and making sure it was taken care of. I mean, they were so thorough. And then my second choice is Jerry's Artorama. I've never had any real problems with Jerry's. I just was so impressed with Dick Blick's customer service that they are my first choice. But those would be my two. I know a lot of people mention Cheap Joe's. The problem that I have with Cheap Joe's is they never have what I like. They have such a small selection of stuff that I just never can find enough stuff to buy to get the free shipping. And then I want to say was it Cheap Joe's? One of those when I was buying my my mat cutter. It's a big, huge mat cutter. It's, I don't know, maybe 3 feet, if that, and then by, this wide or so. So when I was purchasing that, I know that it's a heavier item to ship. However, they wouldn't give me the shipping charges until I placed the order. Well, I don't know if you're going to charge me $50 or $2. I don't know. And so I've never bothered with their website after that. That was not pleasant to me. So yeah, Dick Blick is my first choice. Jerry's is my second. And if you're in the North Texas area, if you're able to get to an Azel Art Supply, that's a really fun store to walk through because they've got supplies that you won't see in person. Like when you go to Michael's or Hobby Lobby, they've got a much bigger selection. Sometimes they're fairly expensive, but the selection's really good. And that's where I get my Frederick's canvases if I don't go directly through Frederick's because they're always half price. Noah says, are you going to light to dark or dark to light? Do you do this every time? Side note, have you played Legion since last week? I am starting with my midtones, actually. So this is kind of, I block in where my lights are, where my white areas are going to be. What I'm doing right now is kind of a mid-range. I'm going to have to go lighter and darker from what I'm blocking in here. And yes, I have played Legion. I was doing some dailies. I even did my first Mythic last week. My guild carried me through. They let me heal, which wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. And those who don't play Warcraft have no idea what I'm talking about, and I apologize for that. So most of this is really going to be black. I'm just going to switch to a cooler gray. I don't need to be that light. If you guys haven't already, their links should be in the video description if I remember to put them there. I really hope that I did. But Joseph and Valerie both have awesome videos here on YouTube, so you should definitely check that out. Valerie does wood burning, which is absolutely beautiful, and then Joseph does a lot of painting. So you guys should check out their channels. I mean, not right now, but soon. But those are our two mods today. So you can see I'm not pushing very hard. And you can see all the little white dots, hopefully, of where I'm working. And that, once I blend out with the paint thinner, that will get rid of all of those. I think this can be a look. Wow, my wind chimes are going crazy outside. I don't think we've got a storm coming in. I know it's getting really cold. I'm sorry if you can't hear me. Remind me if I do need to get louder, but the placement of my microphone, I really need to get one that I can clamp onto my easel. I'm going to have to look into that sometime in the very near future. I just don't know what to buy. So here I am burnishing where I'm pushing harder on the eye. I'm not going to worry about having to do a lot of layering. I know it just needs to be dark. I have faded from the black, and then I put the gray on top of it, and that fades into that reddish brown color here. So it's not something where if somebody walks up and looks at it, they're like, oh, there's 3 colors there. It's super subtle, but it does make a big difference in the end result. It does give it a lot more depth in putting in those extra details. That beak comes out a lot farther here. Make sure I connect that line just so I can better judge where I'm going. We'll have little bits of red fade out into the darker feathers here. Then we'll switch back into the brown. Now, I don't worry that every color is exact, but what I do have is I've used Photoshop to make little color samples or little swatches so I have a general idea of what colors I need. It makes it much quicker for me to catch what I'm using, and I don't have a way to show that to you. So I will make sure to show how I do the color swatches on every subject that I'm doing before I even get started when I do the official video for this. Noah says, what do people usually get me for Christmas? Is it always set supplies? I have 50 sketchbooks because of past Christmas gifts. When I was younger, people used to go crazy getting me art sets. And the problem with that, while I love the concept, you know, and it was so thoughtful of them, so I was never going to say anything negative about it, but the art supplies that come in those sets are pretty terrible. Like really very much so. So those were never that usable, but I do have my grandmother, who I don't think is alive anymore. I'm not in contact with that side of the family for family drama things, but they are violent. But anyway, that grandmother I did have good memories of, and so I kept an art set she gave me, and I put other pencils and stuff in it, and I can't bring myself to not keep it because my grandma gave it to me. So I did keep the cases. I kind of like that they come with. It's the supplies that are just not so awesome. But mostly, what do people get me? My mother-in-law usually gets me a fancy purse and clothes. She likes to get girly things, and she always gets mad when I ask for something like art, or usually like a few years ago it was tech stuff. Like I needed larger external larger external hard drive to store videos on, and she just thought that was not a fun thing to shop for. She wants to buy girly things. So she'll get me stuff like that. My mom gets what we call mommy gifts, where it's the goofiest, like, what the heck, why would you buy this? Usually something handmade, and I think they're awesome, but they're also very funny. So yeah, I can't think of what other than that, but no, normally it's not art supplies that people get me. Stephanie McNeil wants to know if I'm going to draw a what? A proboscis? Huh? I would have to Google that, and I maybe should know what it means, and I have no idea. Do you know how to do any digital artwork? I want to see digital tutorials. I do, but I do not do tutorials. I may do a live stream with them at some point. I have some digital work on my website. There's a bunny that I drew that is on there. I think it's the only bunny I have, so it should be pretty easy to find that one on my website under the gallery if you want to see what my work looks like. I've not done a ton of digital work, but I do, but I don't. This channel is really going to stay with more traditional, because I feel like I already start to fracture my audience a lot as it is with how many different mediums I work in. So I don't want to add too many additional mediums to that. I need a sea green type color, or a minty green. That should do it. Oh wait, what was that one? Probably not. Okay. And the talking to myself while I choose colors. Where's my sharpener? This is pretty much how I work when no one's here watching me too. Melissa asks, when you airbrush gesso on paper for powder blender use, how many layers do you put down? Usually, I don't know, 3, 4. I just keep coating it and coating it. And sometimes I'll use too much water, and so I have to put more layers so that because once that water evaporates, it's really not that much on there. So probably I would say 3 or 4 until it feels like it's fully covered. How's that for an answer? Okay, so I'm going to take this really pale green and just put that in a couple of spots. And by couple, I obviously don't know what couple means because I'm doing it in like 10 spots. A couple, 10, right? Math, it's not my strong point. Yeah, those drawers that I use to hold my colored pencils are amazing. They're just pastel drawers. It's a 3-drawer pastel box, and they hold colored pencils. Hi, look, my hair is in the box. Classy. They hold your pencils so nicely. I mean, you can get those. I get the ones now. That is one thing I go to Jerry's Artorama for, just because Dick Blick's reviews weren't as good as the ones on those boxes at Jerry's. I read a lot where the Dick Blick boxes were warping. How true that is, I don't know, but I just keep getting mine from Jerry's. And they range, usually when they're on sale, you can get them for about $24. When they're not on sale, I think full price is about $30. Adam says, what is the best paper to use for colored pencil? I'm using watercolor and Bristol, but I want to play around with it. There are a lot of different papers that I like. This one is the Fabriano Artistico Extra White Hot Press 140-pound watercolor paper. I like this one, especially if I'm going to be airbrushing. It just handles the wet media so well. And it's really good for getting fine details, very clean. Stonehenge sold in the individual sheets. I like those, but only the ones sold in the individual sheet. I don't like colored pencil on the pad of paper. I like it for graphite, but not for colored pencil, because the one that comes in the pad, it's too much like a vellum. It makes it It's not good for layering the colored pencil as well. It's too smooth. It's too hard for me to get the color saturation that I want. What else do I like? Sanded paper is also turning out to be really good, especially when you're using powder blender. But sanded paper works great even if you're not using the powder blender. My podcast co-host John, he just did a portrait with that, and it was beautiful. You get a rougher, kind of bumpier texture, but it also, I mean, it different results if you like that look, but it really did come out beautifully. Those are just my favorites. Okay. Now, one thing you'll see me do a lot, I'm constantly checking to see if the pencils are sharp. When I'm working on something with this much detail, this tiny, it is more important than ever that those pencils be sharp. You want your pencils to be sharp anyway so that you get the pigment into the little nooks and crannies of the paper. But when you're working tiny like this, I'm just kind of constantly sharpening them. And that's one thing when I was teaching classes in person, I would see happen a lot where students just did not sharpen their pencils as often as what they should be. Aw, how cute. My channel filter is blocking Kaneho's comments. It's like doing the work for me. Yeah, Leanna's answering a question. My sister is answering a question about how I do my nails. I bought her a stamping set and she never used it. So she acts like she knows what she's talking about. She doesn't. I mean, it's true, that is how I do my nails, but she doesn't know how to use it. So at this point, now that I have most of this blocked in, I'm just going to get a base green and I'm going to blend that out with the Odorless Mineral Spirit so that I'm no longer fighting against the white in those areas. Not all of it. Some of it, like I was saying earlier, I do want the white to stay in quite a few of these areas, just not everywhere. Noah Spalding wants to know if Leanna is good at art too. She can draw some entertaining stick figures. But she did just get a, what was it, a 92 on her psych something grade for college. I don't know, some class. So she's pretty awesome, just not at art. I'm going to start pulling these much darker areas in before I blend that out. Warrior Potato on a Unicorn, who has the best name ever, says, read the Court of Thrones and Roses series. It's like the best fantasy series I ever read. I will have to look into that. currently listening to one that I've been listening to that is so good and the performance is amazing. It's about zombies and superheroes. Like, what an awesome combination. It's the X-Humans or X-Heroes. Throwing my pencil at myself. But if you like zombies and you like superheroes, it's a pretty good one. And it's got a full cast for the performance that's just phenomenal. So that one's been fun. Get this olive green in here. So you can see the first layers, it's not the prettiest thing in the world. It's just like everything else that I always am saying this, it's a layering process. You're going to go through some ugly layers and it'll start to get better, and then it gets uglier, and then it gets better, and then it gets ugly again. You'll go back and forth. That's totally normal. You want to just keep working on it until it starts to look good. And this has, it's not sharp. This piece has, or this bird has, like every shade of green possible. Yes, I do live near an airport. Those planes get loud, and it makes it really frustrating when I'm trying to record my videos every week because I have to keep stopping every time a plane goes by. Love the area I live in, but that is really annoying. And I don't notice the planes normally. I only notice them when I'm trying to record videos. You get so used to them going by, but that can get frustrating. You can see I'm layering this green right on top of that. So you can see how much pigment I'm putting onto the paper before I ever touch the mineral spirits. It's a lot of pigment. If you don't have the pigment there, it's not going to blend well. And I'm also going to come back through and make sure that I've got the white in all of these areas. Otherwise, I'm going to make a muddy mess. So we'll go through that quickly. I'm going to go ahead and blend that out with the Odorless Mineral Spirits. And I'm just using this one is a flat tackle and bristled brush. Now what I do is I've got a piece of Viva paper towel. I just dip the brush into my paint thinner and then I dab some of it off. You don't need very much. I'm going to start with the lighter areas first so that I don't smudge the dark into the light too much. And what I'm doing is just dissolving that pigment into the paper. And it's very fuzzy, so obviously this is not where I want to leave it. It's just my first layer. And those of you, if you are new and you're like, who is this Conejo person making these rude comments to people? We all love Conejo. He will grow on you, kind of like a wart, but you'll get used to him. That's just Conejo. Don't let him scare you off. Fiddlejul wants to know if she sees a teal pencil. Probably. There's a lot of them. Of course, they're my favorites. There's actually, I don't even think I'll be able to use maybe a little bit with layering on this one. There's not much in the way of teal on this entire piece, which is disappointing. I should have planned better. Anne McLeod says, what is the difference between odorless paint thinner and mineral spirits? It's the same thing. I just use the different words. Mona Lisa odorless paint thinner, it's listed as paint thinner, but it's also it is an odorless mineral spirit. So I go back and forth on the names just because of that. Noah wants to know how similar I am to my sister. Does she also obsess over teal and flamingos? No, but she obsesses over a lot of things. She is much more obsessive than I am, if that's even possible. I'd say we both have a similar sense of humor. I think her and I look more like each other than me and my full sister. This is my half sister. And I have more physical attributes, I think, in common with her. And probably personality-wise, too. Tatiana wants to know, what pencil sharpeners do I recommend? My Prismas are always breaking and need a really good sharpener in general, preferably electric. I noticed that the Derwent electric eraser, or actually it's the sharpener, is out of stock. Yeah, it is. And I don't even know, I don't have a good alternative for you guys right now. I'm actually going to talk to Derwent because my podcast co-host John was mentioning that they have another sharpener he really likes. So I'm going to talk to them and see about getting them to send me one so I can try it out and see if that would be good for you. I don't know of which ones are good right now. And I apologize for that because I've had mine forever. So I'm not sure why it seems like they're not making those. It's been out, from what I understand, for a year or two now. So I unfortunately don't have any good suggestions for you just yet. Kateru wants to know if Inktense count as colored pencils. Depends on who you ask. I don't count them as colored pencils. I count them as water-soluble ink. I count colored pencils as the wax or oil-based pencils like what I'm using here. My podcast co-host, who I feel like I keep plugging the podcast because I keep bringing him up, he insists that they're colored pencils. I say that they are just water-soluble ink in pencil form. So that just depends on who you ask. But I would not mix the two. You can use Inktense as a base and then put your wax or oil-based pencils on top, but not the other way around because the Inktense are water-soluble. So being that they just don't play well together in that order. But again, if you put Inktense down first, you can go on top of that with your colored pencil just fine. Leanna says we both obsessed with teal. I thought yellow. I thought you were obsessed with yellow a while ago. Or am I thinking of my mom? So I've got to wait for this to dry. It feels dry enough to the touch, but I can tell by the white area, just the color right now, until that dries, it'll lighten up a bit. So while that dries, what I can do is start blocking in some of my other areas that have no paint thinner on them. So this is the same thing, just gonna pay attention to the direction that these feathers are supposed to go. And I don't need them to be exact, I just need them to be close. Ramsey wants to know, how long did it take me to really master painting and drawing? I don't know that I would say I've mastered it. I feel like we always have more to learn, so it's hard to say how long. I think it would be weird for anyone to feel like they've completely mastered something. But to get to this level, I've been doing this for 20 years professionally, and I've been doing it my entire life. So it's not a fast process, that's for sure. And I think now you guys are lucky because you have all of the YouTube videos you can use. When I was a kid, because I'm old, that wasn't a thing. I just learned from trial and error, and so it took me a lot longer than I think it'll take you guys, because you do have so many videos you can watch, so much information out there showing you how to do things better. Okay, Leanna, I swear I thought weren't you getting a yellow phone case? Or no, you wanted a yellow iPhone. You had something with yellow. I agree. I don't like yellow either. I think that Leanna just keeps changing her mind because she's very young. Maybe she did like yellow. Switch my reference photo here for a second because I am losing my place on this bird. Okay. So this comes down to that berry. So I'm actually covering parts that should be more white. David, I used to teach out of Michael's and Hobby Lobby and then at a private studio, but not private, owned by me, but I worked for somebody else. Now just YouTube and Patreon. And I'm getting text messages, some from my sister, asking if I'm recording this. Yes, I am. And it's something I'm not going to repeat that has nothing to do with this video. My friends are funny. Okay, so I'm basically right now just trying to pay attention to what section went where. I kind of lost my place a little here. So this whole section will be much darker because this one has a really high contrast between the shadowed area and the light area over here. But I don't want to go too dark to start with because I may have some of my darks in a place that I don't want them to be. So by starting lighter, I can easily correct that if I screw up. And no one wants me to come out of teaching retirement. If I do that, I don't have time to teach online. So it was one of those things where I had to choose one. And online meant I could reach more of you guys. So it made more sense. As much as I did enjoy teaching in person, that is a lot of fun. So I'm just working in little ovals and circles here just to block this in. I need a darker brown. That one will work. There we go. I don't want to jump into shading with black for all of this. The black will be used very sparingly on this side. I feel like sometimes people feel like you should be able to see every single feather and every single bird you draw, and don't feel that way, because the birds, when they're healthy and their feathers are in good condition and they're not, in this case, fluffed up, they're generally very sleek. You won't see every individual feather, so don't feel like you have to draw them all in like fish scales. Warrior Potato on a Unicorn says, I can't believe the Colored Pencil podcast is almost at its 100th episode. Do you and John have anything special planned for it? Yes, I'm going to make him do a live stream with me. So hopefully you guys will actually get to see John in person. And, well, in person, on video, live, whatever. But yeah, we're planning to record the live stream, or the podcast as a live stream as well. That's what we've been talking about anyway. Leanna, are you trying to get bossy by how much coffee I drink? I didn't used to drink much coffee. I was always drinking tea because caffeine doesn't go well with being hyperthyroid. It was making me not feel well. But I found recently, I got a Keurig machine, and I found that there is a nice balance of how much caffeine I can have before it makes me not feel well. So I've been enjoying that thoroughly. It's either that or I pass out at the easel because, you know, those of you who have fibromyalgia know how much that sucks to try to stay awake. But it's been nice drinking the coffee with the Keurig because it's the first time that I kind of feel a little bit human and a little bit more awake. I'm not giving that up, even if Leanna keeps giving me a hard time. Was I ever extremely OCD about my accuracy on detail? I'm OCD on my accuracy on the initial drawing. On the detail, like what I'm doing now, no, I don't think I really ever was. I think I've always pretty much had the attitude close enough. I mean, as long as it looks like feathers and I build up that texture, that's what matters to me. That's what I enjoy. Trying to make every line exact, I don't enjoy working that way. So, I don't. But the initial outline, the shape of the bird, the shape of if it's a person, that I'm OCD about. Noah Spalding wants to know if I'm ever going to do oversized work, like bigger than usual. This one's a 16 by 20, so it's bigger than usual for me for colored pencil. I do have some, that's about as big as I'll likely go with colored pencil unless I'm using powder blender, because you can go pretty quick, or pretty large, pretty quick with that. Painting, I do go larger, where it's like a 36 by 48 is about the largest I've done. I don't like painting those. They don't film well, honestly. Since I started really making videos, I like doing the smaller things. I think that they come out so much better on video. But I don't really like working large. I did when I was younger, not so much anymore. Okay, I've got some weird stuff going on here. I need to move this. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just kind of lightly sketch in where these feathers go. David wants to know how I store my paintings. If you can see behind me, all of those teal things right there, those are all there. It's felt that I have over my paintings. So once they're completely dry, that's worked the best for not getting scratches, because I think the longer you store things, sooner or later they start getting scraped and scratched up, and that's worked really well for me. So either that or they're hanging on my walls. Oh, this whole section is a whole mess of detail. Let's see. Davis MD wants to know if I would recommend using baby oil as a blender. I absolutely do not. There are very few things that I'm like, don't do this. That's one of them. That's fine for crafters. If you want your work to really last a long time and you're worried about archival properties and even layering. You can't even layer with that stuff because it never dries all the way. Baby oil is one of those things that pretty much always stays wet. I don't like how it behaves with paper, any paper. I don't like how you can't really layer on top of it. You lose a lot of freedom. You lose a lot of what you would be able to do if you were using like an odorless mineral spirit. You can't layer right because it doesn't really dry. So you're not really going to go on top of it because you're going to start damaging the tooth of the paper because you've got now wet paper that never dries. I do not recommend baby oil at all. I think if you're a crafter, fine. But if you're into fine art, it's just not something I recommend. And I know of a lot of artists who use it, and that is fine, but it's not something I would ever recommend one of my students to use. Adam says, how are you layering your colors? I can never get mine to do what I want. If they don't look how you want, you need more layers. But the trick is to not push very hard. Now, the type of paper that you're using will make a difference. This is the Fabriano Artistico Extra White Hot Press 140 pound. I wish I had a shirt to name watercolor paper. This stuff works really well for layering. Stonehenge is okay for layering. If you get the individual sheets, the ones sold in pads, that is going to be more like vellum, and I can never get the color saturation the way I want there. Bristol vellum, I do not like for colored pencil for that reason. It's nice and smooth, but you are not going to get much in the way of color saturation. So that may be part of it. It can definitely be the paper. And then I'm not pushing hard. I don't know if you can really see how very, very light I'm pushing here. So I'm pretty unlimited on how many layers I can get. Well, I wouldn't say unlimited, but I can probably get about 20 layers easily. Layering how I am here. So I can keep layering until it looks good. So what I think happens a lot is people do a few layers and it doesn't look good and they stop. Here, because I'm working in such a light hand, I don't have to stop. I can keep layering until I do like how it looks. So those of you who are not watching live, when you watch this after the recording is over, you're missing out on someone trying to convince everyone that werewolves exist. There's some good conversations going on right now in chat. I wish that they recorded or kept the chat so that everyone later on could watch the conversation go, because it's pretty funny. Notice that these lines that I'm doing, I'm pretty much creating the shape of the feathers, but not just a line, not just a fish scale. There are those sketchy lines that come out. So this is going to make it look like I've got so much detail, but it was done super quickly, very, very easily because of that. And this is where I really like the Polychromos for this sort of detail. When I get to my final layers where I want more opaque pencils, that's when I'm going to switch over to my Luminance. But for this type of detail, my Polychromos are definitely my favorites. You can see I'm really lightly going over even the lines that I drew earlier. Just blocking in that color. Oh, itchy nose. Now this color is fairly mid-range. These feathers are going to end up almost black, whereas these stay lighter tan, but it's nice to have this mid-range to start from so I can build lighter or darker from there. Fernie wants to know if I prefer drawing animals or humans. Usually animals, just because I like animals better than most people. So I've always really, really liked drawing animals. But occasionally, I do like to draw people. I take it this one was named Charlie. Everyone, every week everyone names whatever animals I'm drawing. Okay, this is a kind of fluffy, actually it's not really white. Let's go with a light gray for the base here. And I'm going to go ahead and use that minty green color. What is this called? This one is light phthalo green. I like my version better. And I'm going to start with this in just a few areas. And I will still have to define these feathers a lot better. What I'm doing right now, I'm just kind of getting this base of approximately where things are going to go. If you are not going to use the powder blend, or the brushandpencil.com titanium white and touch-up texture, then make sure you leave white, the white pencil. If you were drawing this, make sure that white in these feathers stays completely white. Now, I get to be lazy about it. I don't have to worry too much about it because I'm going to paint back on where I want those highlights. But if you don't have that, if you're not going to be painting that way, make sure you let the white paper show through. Because even the most opaque white pencils are not going to be that opaque. You're still going to see whatever is behind it, whatever color you put down first. So make sure you be very careful with anywhere you need to stay light. And I will start looking and seeing, looking into some sort of mic that I can attach to my easel. So a directional mic. I'll try to get one by next week. We'll see what I can find. I know the audio's pretty bad, and I keep saying I'm going to do it, and I don't, but we'll really try to do that this week. JPC 13 Art has informed me that this is Charlie, Noah, and Libby, the 3 hummingbirds. So I'm going to go ahead and go one darker on some of these greens now. And I'm going right over the light and dark areas that I've already done. I can be pretty sloppy at this point. Go a little bit darker on these edges just to get some pigment on the paper. Denise wants to know if there are different size tips for the airbrushes. Yeah, there will be different needle size, and different airbrushes will handle different needles. I have one that's, I think, a 0.5, and then another one that is a, whatever the other size, 0.35? I don't remember. I don't airbrush that often, so I don't remember off the top of my head what half the stuff I use are. I don't have to replace my supplies or anything like that, so I don't really remember what I bought. Every time I need to replace something, I have to go look it up on the airbrush itself. Okay, I'll do a little bit darker. A little bit more pigment in there before I blend out this base. Now this is a good example of an area where you look at, your initial thought would be, okay, that's a black feather, just paint it or draw it solid black. It's not. There's browns in this, what am I using now? Caput mortem that I never can say right. There's a lot of different tones in here. Watch for that as you're working. Things are usually not as flat as you think they are. Wow, that wind is going crazy out there. My studio assistants are not going to be happy about having to go out there later. Italian Greyhounds are adorable. They're not huge fans of the cold. See, CC's Heavenly Portrait says, how do you label your colored pencil pieces, or what would you recommend for labeling them? Oops, I just lost that. Paintings, drawings, sketches, etc. I've seen several labels and just wondered what's best. I usually call them paintings, but then when I use hashtags, I'll include drawing and whatever people might click on. But I consider them paintings. I mean, I'm using a brush. Paintings or drawings, I would go with. Some people want to call them illustrations. I wouldn't go there. I don't feel that they fit that. Everyone's going to have a different opinion there for sure. Ibadiah says, if you were going to enter a competition, would they consider airbrushing as cheating? Well, a competition for what? I mean, if it's a colored pencil piece and it's just a colored pencil show, unless they're allowing mixed media, because that's what this is. This isn't a colored pencil drawing. This is actually considered mixed media. So there's no cheating with art. You can't cheat unless you're copying somebody else's. In this case, like if I were to enter the Colored Pencil Society of America, whatever, I don't enter their contests, but if I did, I wouldn't be able to use my brush and pencil where I paint on the white, even though that's archival, because that's not considered colored pencil, or they don't consider it colored pencil. I wouldn't be able to enter the airbrush section. I would have to enter their other show, which includes things, mixed media. So it just depends on what you're entering and what their rules are. But this would not be a straight colored pencil. This would be considered a mixed media. Noah says, how do you get your how do you get your canvases? How often do you always get them for free? I've gotten several from Frederick's years ago. I've not gotten any more. I actually got so many that I haven't had to replace them in forever. But I also will get them at Azel Art Supply here in North Texas, because they have the Frederick's canvases for half price all the time. So they have the best prices. So I'm going to go ahead and blend out with my Odorless Mineral Spirits. You can see I'm going over everything. Don't care about everything being fuzzy. All I'm trying to do is make sure that I don't have any white of the paper showing through anymore. I just want to get a nice base. This is going to help me not to have that grainy, gritty look later on without having to burnish. I'm not damaging the tooth of the paper at all when I blend this way. This will also help for those of you who work with Prismacolors. This helps to get rid of some of the wax bloom. So it'll let you do more layering that you would otherwise be able to do. Okay, back to the details around the face. So right now, this is a stage where I've seen many people call their drawing finished. No, it's not that it's wrong or bad, it's just not finished. That I think would be one of my biggest tips for artists, is just to keep working on it. So often they think that things are done just because there's color on it. And that, I would say, is definitely not the case. Come back through with that blue after I get some black in, so we'll set that down. Actually, let's see how this Pablo works for highlighting. I am just not in love with these Pablos. They do not seem to do for me. John keeps wanting me to get a set so that we can do a review for the Colored Pencil podcast, but I don't want to spend more money on them because I've just not been impressed. I like what the regular Luminance can do just fine on their own. The Pablos are supposed to be able to get better detail. I can get better detail, and the color seems to be more opaque when I use the regular Luminance. And I felt that way because the Pablos are supposed to be to Luminance, they're both by Caran d'Ache. The Pablos are to Luminance what Prisma Very Thins are to Prisma Premier. I've always hated the Prisma Very Thin, even when I use Prismacolor. They don't work well for my techniques, and I kind of feel the same about the Pablos. Every time I pick one up and try it, it's like, I just want my regular Luminance I like much better. And I know that that comes down to technique, because there are a lot of people who love those pencils. I just can't get myself to like them. In theory, the Pablos should get better detail than what the Luminance do, but because of, I don't know if it's just how I'm layering or what, I just have not found that to be the case. Yeah, Sarah Makes Art says, speaking of archivability, I've seen some artists do amazing work with ballpoint pen, but I worry about the archivability of ballpoint pens because they're not exactly made for artwork. Oh, she knows again. I'm with you on that. I've not done the research, so I don't know how light fast they are. I don't know if it matters from company to company. I've seen amazing work done with it too. I mean, I've seen amazing work done with a lot of things. Sometimes people don't care if it's archival. They just want to draw something that they thought looked cool, but yeah, I don't know how archival pens are. Some pens I know are fine. Different types of ink are light fast, but I don't know about all of them. So you can see I'm starting to build up the little teeny tiny details in here now. Do I feel that Caran d'Ache will ever expand the color choices of their Luminance line? I hope they do, and I hope that Polychromos do too. One of my biggest complaints about both of these pencils is that they don't have like hot pink, bright, bold pinks and purples. I think that's, well, I know that they're harder to make light fast, but sometimes when I'm doing different floral pieces, I really want a bright, bright pink, and I have to settle. I mean, even like the cherries I was doing last week, I can counter it by just paying attention to my values, but sometimes I really want that bold, bright pink that they just don't make in those pencils. And even with the Lyra Rembrandt, I wasn't finding the bright, bright pinks that I wanted. So I hope that both of them expand their colors. It's one of the reasons those Holbein pencils that I refuse to use until they fix a lot of their problems. I'm hoping that they do fix some of their problems because they've got different colors that aren't available in these, and I'd like to try some of those out. Adam says he's doing this instead of homework. That's how much he loves my work. Thank you, Adam. I'm glad you're hanging out with us. But don't fail your classes. I feel like I have to do the old lady teacher stuff. Make sure you get your homework done. my little sister just informed us that she's watching this instead of studying for her finals. Leanna, you better get your studying done. You I can give a hard time to about that. Rose says, any tips for organizing art supplies and storing work in a really small space, especially when having a dedicated art room isn't an option? Yeah, my last art studio was also my bedroom, which was also my living room. It was a very small space. For that, I just make sure that everything has its own container, its own box. The big thing is not to leave everything out everywhere or have one box for everything. It gets too confusing. I got a set of drawers that you cannot see. If you go to my studio tour, you'll see them there from IKEA. I want to say it was about $100. It's a big wood drawer set, which is nice because when you move, it will go with you. You don't want to get the particle board crap that falls apart when you look at it wrong. But get the solid wood ones. And with that, because it's got drawers, I could have different mediums in each drawer. And I still use that. It's one of the best things for organizing. That's my big one. And then my wood boxes for my pencils are my big thing. But I think having a dresser or a desk or something that you can put everything in and put things away, I think that's the big deal. If you start leaving them out, everything gets lost and then eventually damaged. And it's just a whole thing. Noah says, I feel like this is pointless to say, but I just wanted to let you know that I am always inspired by you and you have lit my artistic spark. It went out a year ago. Oh, that's awesome. Thanks. Kitaru wants to know if I think I will get to the branch part by the end of the live stream. Definitely not. I won't even finish his head by the end of the live stream. You guys will have to wait for next week's live stream for the branch and leaves and berries. This is not a fast process by any means. I will have to do some acrylic painting though for a live stream where it's the whole painting in the one live stream so you guys can kind of paint along. Maybe provide a reference photo beforehand and just walk you guys through so you can paint along with me. I think that would be a fun live stream to do. Let me know if that's something you guys are going to be interested in. It would be a more simple beginner painting, but it'd be kind of fun for all of us to paint the same thing at the same time and finish the work in that 2-hour session. Heidi wants to know where I got the reference photo. The 3 hummingbirds came from an amazing photographer. She's also an artist. Her name is Christine, and I will have to see. I don't know if she has a website or anything that I can share with you guys. I'll find out when I post the full video about all of this. But she took the hummingbirds, and then I took out, there's a trail by my apartment, and I went out with my camera and just was taking random photos. I was actually looking for ladybugs because we had a swarm of them outside my apartment, so I thought maybe down by the trail there'd be even more. No, they were just by my apartment. But while I was down there, I found some really cool photos to take, berries and such. This one has berries and then the leaves the way they were coming out. I had to wait forever for the lighting to get in the right place for this one. But yeah, I took the branches and leaves were my own photo. Elena wants to know how to create a blurred background. It depends on which medium. For this one, I did it with an airbrush. And the nice thing with that is you don't have to be good at the airbrush at all to get this look. It is something your first time ever airbrushing can get this look. It's like the easiest thing to do with an airbrush. So it's a really good way to get started. But that's my favorite way. Another way, the brushandpencil.com, their powder blender makes getting blurry backgrounds super easy with colored pencils. Probably the easiest way to get a blurry background with the pencils. And again, it depends on the medium. Every medium is going to have a different way to get the blurred background. Fierce Lego Link wants to know, can we share our artwork with you through social media, or do you just prefer through your website? I just started using the powder blender and I'm drawing a hummingbird as well. That's awesome. If you want a critique, then that has to go through my website at lachri.com/critiques. If you just want to share it so we can all appreciate what you're doing, which I love to see, yes, share it through social media. Tag me. If you're on Twitter, you can use, the @ Lachri or hashtag Lachri. Instagram, same thing. You can tag me or do the hashtag Lachri. I need to check that. I haven't checked those ones lately for the hashtags. But yes, definitely share. We also have our own Facebook group and Google Plus group, which I don't have links for. If you just look for Lachri and artist group, you'll find us on both those places and you can share your work there too. Adam says, I'm thinking about doing my own, whoops. Got something in the way so I can't see. There we go. And I lost it. Adam says, I'm thinking about doing my own how to draw, watch me draw segment on YouTube to try to help me grow and also share my ideas. Do you think this is a good idea? Any advice? Absolutely. I think YouTube is such a great way to build a following and you get to reach people. I mean, I have met so many of you guys just because of YouTube, which makes it a lot of fun. Just chatting with everybody and getting to know everybody. It's rewarding, I think, for everybody involved. It's really a great thing. I think that's something that all artists should be doing. YouTube is something to definitely take advantage of because it can get your work in front of potential buyers, or in this case, it can get you, I end up meeting people who are learning from what I'm doing. So yes, I do think it's a good idea, and I would look up Tim Schmoyer, video creators. His channel, just look at video creators, actually, is an easier way to find him. Here on YouTube, he's got great tips on getting started and all of that great YouTube stuff. Much more so than I would have here. Barbara says that she wasn't able to share artwork on her Facebook site, couldn't post images. You probably went to my personal page. What you want to find is the Facebook group, not my personal page. So try again the Lachri artist group, but look under groups. Now I'm starting with brown, and this really will have a lot of black over most of this area that I'm working on right now. But if I start with black, it makes it harder to go light enough when working with colored pencil. So it's going to make it much easier on me if I just start with that mid-tone first. Again, I'm not pushing very hard at all. Elena wants to know if I can tell you how I started in my path to fine arts, or can you read about it somewhere? It's on my website. I believe I have it mentioned on my About section, but the short version is I was sick a lot. I have celiac disease, which is an autoimmune disorder, and we didn't know that when I was a kid. So I always had tonsillitis, and I mean, I was just always sick. So, and that sounds way sadder than it was. I got to play outside. I was just sick more often than normal kids. I didn't feel that well. I never had that much energy. And so I drew a lot and colored a lot, and art has just always been something I was interested in. I like to sit and draw. So that's where that started. And then when I was 19, I was walking at the beach down at, where was I? Why is the word Laguna? I was walking down at Laguna and in Southern California, and I was there with a friend, and this lady, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do for a living at this point. I was working at at that point I was working at a pet store. And I was walking around with a friend and came across a lady who, and at the time, I mostly drew whales and dolphins. That was my big thing. I did it in charcoal and watercolor were my two main ways to paint. And this lady had her artwork of whales and dolphins, and she was selling them for thousands of dollars. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that is a lot of money. My work, and her work wasn't that, her perspective was terrible, basically. Her perspective was very terrible. And I'm thinking, mine's better than that. I'm going to make tons of money being an artist. And as we all know, that is not how the art world works. But that's what got me started. And I just built from there. I just decided this is what I'm going to do. And I took the steps needed to make sure that that happened. There was no YouTube at the time. I wish there was. It would have been great to get started back then with all of this, but yeah. Layla says my artist story cracks her up. Why? Because I thought I was instantly going to be rich and famous because that other lady was selling her work for so much. It was just, I was so naive. I just didn't understand, and I think that's what a lot of artists start out thinking. How easy it'll be. They'll see how much somebody else is able to sell their artwork for and be like, I can do that. Or one of my favorites is everyone will see the abstract work like, oh my gosh, a blue dot sold for millions of dollars. I'm going to be rich. No, that's not how that works. It's business and marketing is what that comes down to. But I was so naive to how all of that was going to work. And I was very naive for very many years, too. I mean, I used to go down to every art gallery, and I was very, very new. Go to every art gallery I could find and try to get them to sell my artwork. And they were all very nice. I have to say, I'm really glad that all of the galleries I spoke to, that no one was rude. No one made me feel like I wasn't going to be good. It was just like, you know, my work wasn't a fit at this time. So, but I mean, I was going to like famous like well-known galleries that were selling work for tens of thousands of dollars. So it was ridiculous for me at 19 who just decided this is what I was going to do to expect all of them to be like, yeah, sure, your work's perfect for us. No, I think I was very, very lucky, and the attitude that everyone gave me. My family has always been very encouraging. All around. I've just been, I think, everything lined up very well for me. And just not having galleries be rude. And I know galleries can be rude to a lot of people, and I feel very, very lucky that they weren't to me, because I think that discourages artists. It's not that I wouldn't eventually get there. I just wasn't there yet. So I'm glad, though, that they didn't discourage me at all. They said everything, you know, my work was nice. It just, they weren't looking for anyone right now. They were just always very polite everywhere that I talked to. Melissa says, I don't have audio recording equipment and I hate the sound of my voice. Do I have to make videos with talking to be successful? Well, it depends on how successful you want to be. When I started doing videos, I just lost the chat because I had to refresh the page. When I started, if you look back at my earlier videos, they weren't tutorials. It was just me drawing. And I don't think that's going to get you that far on YouTube anymore. People want the tutorials. That's what most people are looking for. And so you're competing with a lot more artists. Like early on, Heather Rooney, who's this amazing, if you've not seen her work, she's an amazing colored pencil artist. She doesn't talk through hers, and that's fine. But she started before most of us did, and she had built up a following doing these photorealistic drawings with no audio. Most of us are probably not going to be that successful trying to do the same thing. It's been done. We need to step it up, basically, in order to build that following. So, no, yeah, I would say even if you hate the sound of your voice, apparently I sound like a chipmunk on speed. I've been told this several times. So if I can do it, obviously I don't have the most musical of voices. I don't see why anybody else can't. None of us, and I'll hear from people, I don't like how I look. None of us like how we look. None of it, I mean, that's normal. So you just have to go ahead and do it. And yeah, if you don't have audio equipment, sure, start now. But if you want to get to where you've got a good following, yeah, you're going to want to get that equipment. Adam wants to know if I remember what the first piece of artwork that I sold. That's a good question. It was probably at Angel's Galleria. It was this little gallery in the Pomona Arts Colony. I know it would have been a whale or a dolphin because that's all I did back then. But I think it was one. It was probably one where the whale was swimming away from you and you just saw the tail. I did a lot of paintings like that, but I don't really remember. I'm not positive. I'm just assuming that's probably what it was. Because I sold a few of those there. Like I would do them in different colors. Katerina, I'm probably saying that wrong. The text is really little. It's hard to see names on here. Wants to know, when you look back, when you started, do you think, wow, look how far I've come. Yeah, it's surprising. I mean, I never would have thought I'd get to where I was doing realism to the level that I was. When I started, I had the attitude that many young artists have. This is just my style. This is just how I paint. It's how I draw. This is as good as I'm ever going to be. And when I met Jaime Jimenez, he was the one who really encouraged me that is not really how it works. And if I want to be better, I can be better. But, I never would have thought that I'd be doing portraits. My big thing was, I always used the excuse, I can't draw people. Can't draw portraits because I can't draw people. Well, yeah, no one starts just being able to draw people. That comes with practice. And this is not the right colored pencil. That one will work. So, yeah, the stuff that I'm able to do now, I did not think I was ever going to be able to do. Like, it wasn't even something I was aiming for, because I had limited myself in my head, thinking this is as good as I can do. That was the big excuse. This is my style. So yeah, looking back, I never would have guessed. If you showed me the stuff I'm doing now, if you would have showed me that then, never would have believed it was my work. Noah says, in my house, we refer to you as Squeaky Voice Art Master Lady. No joke, we have so much respect. That's awesome. We have so much respect for you that we think you're amazing, but my family doesn't remember who Lisa or Lachri is. That is awesome. I think I need a touch of a dark, just a little bit darker gray. That should work. I can tell what pencils I use with powder blender because they're so dull. I never let my pencils get that dull when I'm working with Odorless Mineral Spirits, but with powder blender, they don't need to be that sharp, and they get super dull. It's just these little lines, creating those little feathers. There's where I needed that gray for. After I grabbed the gray pencil, I couldn't remember where I wanted it. I want that to be more brown. Weasels on Easels. I love that name. Says this is looking great. Thank you. She also has videos. I don't know if she's got them here on YouTube. I know she posts on Facebook all the time. So at this stage, the majority of what I'm doing here, I doubt I may in a few places use Odorless Mineral Spirits to blend out, but I'm not going to need a lot. You don't have to blend everything. Like when I see this happen a lot. I think I mentioned this on today's video, which if you haven't seen it, the graphite video of the flamingo is up. But you don't have to blend everything. Sometimes just the pencil as it is on the paper is all you need. Don't feel like every single thing needs to be blended. If you're using powder blender, you don't have to finish everything off. You don't need a final coat of powder blender on everything. You just want to use those blenders where you actually need it. C Rebel wants to know, what is easier, colored pencil or graphite? I would say graphite. Well, for two reasons. One, you're working with, you know, just the two tones, or in black and white. It's definitely easier than trying to balance out color. But it's definitely easier to blend too. Colored pencil takes a little bit more getting used to. Start grabbing some of these other greens. Stevia says, how do you find what colors to use as base layers before beginning? And it scrolled past. I'm having trouble figuring out how to start my drawings. I use Polychromos. I love your artwork, by the way. Thank you. I come up with that is not the right way to sharpen that pencil. Wrong side. I come up with I use Photoshop and the eyedropper tool, and I make little color swatches to figure out what colors I'm going to need just to start out with. And I usually start with my mid-range tones first. So in this case, I started out with a medium brown and just built light and dark from there. But it's just a layering process, and if you're kind of scared of what color goes where and you're being, worried about getting the wrong thing, use a scratch piece of paper, preferably the same type of paper your actual project is on, and test it over here to see what's going to happen when you layer this on top of this, because sometimes layering this pencil first over this one is going to look very different than this first and then that one. And now I'm dropping my pencils. But you can test things out like that, and a lot of it just comes from experience. The more you draw, the more it's just going to become natural what colors you need. Noah says, what is the best compliment you've ever gotten on your artwork, in person or online? I don't know. Just hearing from everybody that I've inspired them, that something I've created inspired them in some way, whether they're artists or not, if they were just, moved by the artwork, that's always a huge, huge compliment. But anytime I hear that I've inspired another artist to draw, that's like the best thing in the world. I mean, I can't think of much that would be better compliment-wise. The idea that I can help any other artist. I mean, I struggled a lot financially when I started out. I didn't know what to do. I didn't understand how to sell work. I didn't understand business and marketing. And I had to, improve my work on top of that. But I just felt so lost. There wasn't a lot of information on how to do that. And so now when I hear that I've helped another artist in any way to achieve their goals and their dreams, that's like the best thing in the world to me. C Rebel wants to know what my favorite medium is. Usually whichever one I'm currently working on until I get to the end of it, and then that's my least favorite because I don't want to work with that medium anymore. I would say if I had to choose just one and that was the only medium I could ever use again, it would probably be acrylics. They're very, very versatile, and I've been using them pretty much the longest. So it would probably be acrylics, but I wouldn't actually want to give up any of the other mediums I work in. I love colored pencil. I love ink tints. Oh, I'm so in love. I love working in ink tints. I'm even really liking working in those markers, the Winsor & Newton pigment markers, which really need to do a video on soon. I just have to figure out what project I want to do. But I don't know. I wouldn't want to have to choose just one, but if it was, it would probably be acrylics. Warrior Potato on a Unicorn says, you mentioned earlier that for the 100th episode of the podcast will be live. Does that mean we get a 3-hour history lesson from John? Untitled. Oh God. Or unedited. Oh God. Oh my gosh. I'm going to have to play this part back for John because I still give him a hard time for that. If we're lucky, No, I don't think so. He actually, if you notice for the podcast, he hasn't given us any history lessons lately. It's a little disappointing. John's really fun to pick on because he's such a good sport about it. Jill Graff says, I can't get the Facebook group to accept me. If you added an asked to, and wow, my brain shut off. If you asked to be added tonight when I get done, either Dad can do it now or I can check for it later. Sometimes it happens. And sometimes we won't accept people, you know, we try to keep out spammers. And unfortunately, that means sometimes we end up not accepting people who should be allowed in. Just message one of us or email or something if you're not getting in, and we can take care of that for you. But unfortunately, it happens. Don't give up, though. We'll get you in. I mean, there's certain things that we watch for that we usually won't add people to. Like if it's a girl, a young girl wearing kind of revealing clothing, usually those are going to end up being spammers. They're not real people. So if you happen to be a young girl who takes pictures like that, we probably assumed. But just send a message again, ask again, and I'll try to get you in when we're done tonight. We really try to keep that with the spammers, but unfortunately sometimes that means, like I said, we miss people who should be allowed in. Adam says that me and other artists haven't sparked his interest in art. That's so cool. Yay. So this area here, I need to lighten up, and I'm going to use the white, and it will just lighten what I have. It's not going to make it white, but it will lighten some of this up. Need that to go right over the background. Now the white is one pencil I will usually push quite a bit harder on so that it really shows up. So this area in here, I need to warm this up. So instead of just going with a warmer green, I already have green on there. I'm going to take yellow instead. I'm going to sharpen that yellow first. See, Rebel wants to know what kind of paper I am working on right now. It is the Fabriano Artistico Extra White Hot Press 140-pound watercolor paper. And I keep dropping my pencils. I have way too many in my hand right now. So I'm going to take this yellow and just lay this in. Let that mix in with some of these greens. I feel like I had a better tan color and I lost it. I don't know where. The same? No. Oh. That's the color I need. Beck says I'm a coloring ninja. It's looking amazing. Thank you. And Rose wants to know when the live stream is supposed to end. In just a couple of minutes. I started a little bit late just because I was having some technical difficulties. So we'll go a little bit longer. Cole wants to know if I have a favorite type of paper to work on. It depends on what I'm doing. If I'm going to have super sharp, fine detail, then the Fabriano Artistico Extra White Hot Press 140-pound watercolor paper is probably my favorite. If I've got really soft blending, like for a portrait, then the Stonehenge sold in the individual sheets is going to be my favorite. It really depends on what, if I'm using powder blender, then the Fisher 400 sanded paper is going to be my favorite. Yeah, Heidi says that is one problem she has when working in colored pencil. She ends up holding every pencil until I have like 8 in one hand. This is where I'm at now. I'll usually hit about double this before everything starts hitting the floor and I give up and put some down. A bit of a problem with that. Noah says I should totally do some Wow Found art, Broken Isle. I think you saw my Booty Bay fan art. That one's in my living room, and I'm going to do a Murloc soon. I love Murlocs, and so I will be doing one of those sometime in the near future. I don't know what in Broken Isle I would want to do. I can't think of anything specific that really is kind of iconic. That's one of the things I liked about Booty Bay, is that everyone recognizes that. I think even like part of Stormwind, even though I don't like Alliance, part of Stormwind would be semi-iconic where people would really recognize it. Hope wants to know if this will be posted on YouTube when it is done. Yes, it absolutely will. That's one of the reasons that I like live streaming from YouTube, is that I already get that extra video. It's saved. I don't have to do any extra work or editing or any of that. It's all going to be uploaded all on its own. So if you ever come late, it will be here. No worries. JPC13 Art says she needs to edit tomorrow, or he, I don't know, needs to edit tomorrow's video, but really doesn't want to. I'm with you on that. That is my least favorite part about making videos, is the editing. John wants to know if I have to stand back or even leave the room so I can see the illustration clearly. What I normally do is look through my viewfinder on the camera. Oh, that looks better than it does up here. I'm kind of liking how he's coming out. Yes, I will regularly either stand back, or because I record everything, it's so easy for me to back up and look at the viewfinder, because it minimizes it, or it shrinks it down so that you can really see if something's too bright, too dark, that sort of thing. That's what I do more often than not. But yeah, I do have to step away from it and really... You start to lose sight of it when you sit this close for very long. I'm definitely getting to that point where I'm 2 hours is a good run for me to now go ahead and take a break. Oh, and my monitor just shut off. So I would say I probably have a couple more hours on this bird alone, just building up the detail, the little lines, and it'll go faster when I'm not sitting here talking to you guys. It doesn't always take me this long to draw, but it's a lot of work to get all of the detail in there. It's not a fast process, so I'm glad that you're able to see live or in real time how slow this really goes with colored pencil. When you're trying to create something that looks realistic, you're not going to be able to rush through it. When you get to where you're doing a lot of the little detailing like this, you can do a lot just by dots. Don't feel like you have to have heavy lines. Sometimes it's just a dot that, or a cluster of dots that will create the shadow that you want. Noah says to paint High Mountain. I love that place. It's beautiful. Yeah, until you get lost and can't find what cave you were trying to get into. How many of you watching right now play Warcraft? I'm curious how many of you even know what we're talking about. I probably should stop with the Warcraft stuff, because I'm going to alienate too many people who are confused. For those of you who don't know, World of Warcraft, what we're talking about, it's just a video game that us dorks play. It's a fun video game. Radiant LP wants to know if I like the Fabriano Artistico 300-pound watercolor paper. Is it too thick? As long as it's the hot press. The hot press is an important part. I have some of the 300-pound hot press here, and I really like it. I mostly use it for ink tints because there's so much water and it has a tendency to cause the paper to warp. It'll dry back in place. But with the ink tints, I'll go with the 300 paper usually, unless that's something I may have to ship and need to roll it. That doesn't want to roll very well because it's so thick. But it's a nice paper. For colored pencil, generally speaking, I would say it's thicker because it costs like twice as much. It's a lot more expensive. I don't feel like it's necessary or any better than the 140 pound in most cases, unless again if you're doing like ink tints where it's there's so much water used, then yeah, I like it better then. But for colored pencil, I like the 140. They both work fine as long as they are hot pressed. So what I'm doing right now is just lightly shading some of the white because the white is too white all over the place. I need white, but not that much. I need to make sure that that shadow is there too. Shadow Illustrator wants to know the difference between hot and cold press watercolor paper. The hot press is going to be very smooth, whereas the cold press is really bumpy, very textured. So for colored pencil, I don't like that texture. It makes it hard to get the fine detail. No one wants me to start a gaming channel. I don't even have time to play that much, let alone record a gaming channel. I did record playing a little bit on my video with the my silver play button. I had to look at it to remember what it was called. I've been accused of having being a lot of things, but someone with a good memory is not one of them. So this is an area, there are certain portions here that I'll really want to lighten up, and I'm going to use just little bits here and there. I will do that where I paint it on with the titanium white, or the powdered titanium white and touch-up texture from brushandpencil.com, and you'll see that in the final video. So we are at 10:08. I'm going to go ahead and put the pencils down for now. I'll finish him up later tonight. If you guys have a couple more questions, I'll answer those before we wrap up. While I drink coffee. Very cold coffee. Savina wants to know what paper I would recommend for beginners in acrylic. I wouldn't recommend paper at all. If you want kind of a paper pad type thing, go with the Frederick's canvas pad. But paper itself in acrylics, not the ideal choice because the paper warps. You can't use the amount of water that you need to. It soaks in. I've seen people do dry brushing things on paper, and it's not that you can't create something pretty, but with painting, you typically want to use something that's not so absorbent, so like a canvas would be perfect, or a canvas pad if you need to. But I would say go with canvas. And with acrylic, if you're trying to do the fine detail like I do, then I'd say like a Blue Label Ultra Smooth canvas is great to get started with, or a watercolor canvas or watercolor canvas board even. You can get really smooth blending that way. But water just blends in way too much. You know, it soaks into the paper, and you're not able to blend and glaze like you can on canvas. Noah wants to know if I've heard back from the Bean Bag Company. Yes, I have. They keep emailing me. They're not getting the hint with me, just not responding. It's like those boyfriends in the past that you break up with and you just stop calling them back and they just don't get the hint. That's mean. I shouldn't say that. I've been married for 16 years, so it's been a long time since I did that, to be fair. Weasels on Easel says, if I sent you an ampersand scratch board, would you try it? Yes, I would. Actually, didn't I oh, maybe it was an ampersand. I tried Scratchboard once. Where is it? I did an elephant for Smart Art Box, but I don't know what. No, I made my own Scratchboard. That was different. Let's see. We've got Ibadiah says, do you not like hyperrealism? I think hyperrealism is awesome. It's just not my personal goal. It takes, I mean, this is going to be photorealistic, and I'm going to put, 12, 20 hours into it. I don't know what it's going to be right now. I'll let you guys know later once I get a little further into it. But I'm going to put a lot of time into it. If I wanted to go into hyperrealism, I would have to put like 120 hours into it. I don't want to spend that much time to complete a single piece of artwork. I'm happy with the results I get from photorealism, whereas, the hyperrealism, spending that kind of time, it just isn't my goal with art. So it's not that I'm against it. I just don't want to do it myself. I think it's beautiful. It's just way more work than I'm willing to put in. Mozart Studio wants to know if I mix paint with palette knives or brushes. Always with brushes, never with... The only time I mix with palette knife is if I'm doing an actual palette knife painting. Brushes or palette knives, I feel like you end up mixing a lot more paint than you need, and because I paint in such thin layers, it makes more sense for me to mix with a brush and have full control and mix smaller amounts. The palette knife, you end up mixing very, very large amounts, and you end up going through and blowing through a ton of paint. Sasha says, shout out from California. Thank you. That's where I'm from. And I just scrolled past it. Rose wants to know what brush size I'm using for mineral spirits. My favorite is this one by Low Cornell. It is, let's see, up there so you guys can see it. It's not very big. It's a Filbert Taklon bristled brush, a number 8. I've also got some smaller rounds. This one is a number 2 round for little areas. And I use this one a lot too. It's a number 6 flat, and it's just a generic. And even though it says number 6 in one brand can mean something totally different in another brand. So that may not help you, but they're not very big because I'm not working huge. Radiant wants to know if I have a good easel recommendation. I like the H-frame easels. If you've got room for them, they're bigger, they're heavier weight. I can push on it and the whole thing isn't, I'm putting a lot of pressure and it's not really going anywhere. It wiggles a little, but that's about it. You want to avoid the flimsier A-frames where it's just the 3 or the tripods where it just kind of, you put any pressure with the paint and the whole thing slides backwards. You want something that's going to be a little bit more heavyweight. This is, I don't know, generic. There's no name on it. I've had it for a really long time, probably 15 or 16 years. I got it on clearance at Michael's a long time ago. But something just heavier weight is really what you want to go with, and I like the H-frames. Emily says that she saw another art channel make a video for that beanbag chair. Oh, I've got to see it. If you can email me a link to that video, I've got to see what another artist did to promote that, because I don't even know how you would tie that into your channel. That's hilarious. Moonround wants to know if I will do a live stream with Inktense. Absolutely. Because I did a commission recently where I did a lot of them and let them choose from that, the company that I was working for, I have a lot of them that are already completed. I've got one with Beta Fish coming up soon that's not my best work, not gonna lie. That one's coming up, but it's got some cool techniques that I can share with you guys. That one will be coming up in, I don't know, a few weeks, but that won't be a live stream. It'll be probably a month or 2 before I do a new Inktense, because I have so many coming up that have been already made because of that commission. So I will do a live stream with them. I just don't have one scheduled yet. Scrolling here. Adam says, I want to improve myself as an artist, but between school, work, and a relationship, I don't have any time. Any advice? When there's something that you want to do, when you want it bad enough, you're going to make it happen. I don't know how old you are, so part of it may just be once you're out of school, that's when you'll improve. That may be what you do. Part of it I don't want to tell people that their relationship is bad. I mean, for some reason I'm getting the impression that you're a kid, but I don't know that for sure. For kids who are very young, I tell my sister this. She's 21 now. But my big thing is focus on your end goals. Don't put everything into your relationship. Is that really your first priority right now? I'm assuming you're young. I don't know why I'm thinking that you're very young. But I'll tell you what I tell my sister. With her, I'm like, boys are not the end goal right now. Right now, focus on school. Focus on your future. That's what matters. So if your goal is to be an artist and to improve as an artist, that has to be what matters over certain other things. Like, I mean, when I was younger, I used to go to clubs and such, and that wasn't important to me. That couldn't be the important factor to me. Going out boy watching couldn't be that important to me anymore because art had to be my priority. That was my priority. But you have to remember, I was looking to become a full-time artist, so that makes a big difference. And I don't want to tell people to break up with their boyfriend or girlfriend. I'm just saying, make sure you know what your priorities are. If you're married, then that's your priority. Gonna throw that out there. If you're older and it's your wife being like, hey, spend time with me, you need to go spend time with your wife. That's different. Oh, I apparently scrolled way too far up. JPC13 Art says Mary Doodles is the artist that did the beanbag promotion. I'm going to have to check that out because she's hilarious anyway. I could see her making a really funny video with that. I will definitely be looking that up. Thanks for letting me know that. I love her. Noah says, is it the Sumo Lounge? I believe so. I could be wrong in that. Pretty sure it is. Yeah, I don't see myself promoting that. I mean, the thing that supports this channel really is Patreon. I mean, that's the majority of it. So if I promote something, it has to be something that I genuinely think artists are going to be interested in, not just, hey, I needed to make a few bucks. I'm very lucky in that that's where I can focus and make sure that it's just art things that I'm promoting to you guys. But yeah, I don't think that a beanbag chair fits us. But I definitely want to check out Mary's, because if you guys have not checked her out, Mary Doodles, she just entertains me. She is funny. Amazing artist too. Okay, well, I think we are about done now. Thank you guys so much for joining. Again, check out Valerie and Dad. I have their links to their channel both in the video description. Make sure to check that out to support our mods, who thank you so much for helping me, by the way, because there's no way I could do this without you guys. You don't even know how much I love you for doing that. And thank you everybody for being here. I hope you guys have as much fun with these live streams as I do, because I love hanging out with you and talking with you. Somehow chatting with everyone live is just very different than chatting to a comment left on a video. This has just been so, I mean, that's fun too, but this has been a lot of fun. I love these. So I'm so good. JPC13 Art really wants that promo video for a beanbag from me. No, I don't even have anywhere to store a beanbag chair. Thanks for joining, guys. I will see you next week. Next week, we will be continuing on this project. Then I'm going to be focusing on one of the leaves and maybe berries. We'll see how far we get. So that is all. Bye. If I can find the stop streaming button.